Every gardener who's ever battled clay soil knows the frustration. You dig in after the rain, and well, you end up with clumps that stick to your shovel like cement. In dry weather, it turns into cracked, lifeless slabs. The typical advice? Break it up, add sand, or till compost in. But here's the truth. Constant digging and amending often make clay worse, not better. There's a quieter, slower, but far more powerful fix that works from within the soil itself. It doesn't rely on backbreaking labour, fancy equipment, or endless truckloads of material. Gardeners during the post-World War II soil restoration campaigns called it the lazy clay cure. And the reason it works is simple. It lets the soil rebuild its own structure. Let's break down how this method actually transforms compacted, waterlogged clay into a loose, friable medium that plants can thrive in, without turning your garden into a construction site. Clay soil has a unique property. Its particles are incredibly fine, smaller than silt or sand. When wet, they stick together through electrochemical bonds that make the soil dense and airtight. Most gardeners' first instinct is to dig, turn, and aerate. But, heavy mechanical disturbance actually smears clay particles tighter together, collapsing what little pore space they have. Over time, the result is worse drainage, poor root penetration, and lower microbial activity. The key to curing clay isn't about breaking it apart by force. It's about encouraging aggregation. Aggregation happens when tiny clay particles naturally bind around organic matter, fungal threads, and microbial glues to form small crumbs, called PDEs. These crumbs create channels for air and water movement. Once this process starts, the soil literally restructures itself from the inside out. And that's, well, exactly what the lazy clay cure focuses on. The central principle of the lazy clay cure is to layer organic matter on top of the clay and, let biology do the rest. The technique actually mimics how forest soils rebuild after disturbance. Instead of mixing compost or manure directly into the clay, you simply spread it across the surface and cover it with a mulch layer, often a blend of leaves, straw, or even shredded cardboard. Over time, moisture and microbial activity draw these materials downward. In practice, this looks like laying down about 3 to 4 inches of rich compost or aged manure over your clay bed. On top of that, add 2 to 3 inches of mulch. For every 100 square feet, that's roughly 1 wheelbarrow of compost and 1 of mulch. So, just leave it alone for a full growing season, watering as you would normally. The top layer, you'll notice, begins to decompose, feeding microbial colonies that release polysaccharides and organic acids. These natural compounds, well, they bond with clay particles, forming structure where none existed before. After a few months, you'll notice worms pulling surface material downward and roots following those same channels. By the next planting cycle, your once sealed surface will have a visible crumb texture, soft enough for a trowel to slip through without resistance. What truly powers this transformation isn't the compost itself, it's the biology it supports. Bacteria and fungi act rather like construction workers in the soil, excreting sticky biofilms that cause fine clay to clump into stable aggregates. Earthworms and burrowing insects then transport those aggregates deeper, extending aeration channels. Here's a practical step to speed this up. Inoculate your compost layer with microbial teas or diluted worm leachate at a 1:10 ratio with water. Apply every few weeks during the growing season. These infusions introduce microbial species that thrive in oxygen-limited clay zones, helping jumpstart structure-building activity. Roots from cover crops such as clover, rye or radish further amplify this process by penetrating compact layers and leaving organic channels behind as they decompose. Think of it like drilling, but done by biology, not machines. The combination of decomposing roots, worm burrows and microbial glues slowly converts compact clay into something resembling loam. Now, many gardeners, try to fix clay by adding sand, thinking it'll loosen up the soil. But unfortunately, that's really one of the oldest and most persistent myths in soil care. When fine clay mixes with sand, the result often mimics concrete, dense, heavy, and nearly impervious to water. The lazy clay cure, well, it avoids this trap entirely because it never blends incompatible materials. Instead, it builds upward, creating a gradual transition layer that naturally merges with the clay below. The ratio of organic to mineral material shifts over time as the clay absorbs dissolved humic compounds. Within a year or two, the active zone extends several inches deep and drainage noticeably improves. In well-managed beds, infiltration rates can triple within 18 months, and all that without a single stroke of a shovel. So, to get started, begin by mowing or trimming any existing vegetation as close to the ground as you can. Next, lay down a single layer of cardboard. This will help suppress weeds and serve as your initial barrier. Then you'll want to spread about 3 cubic feet of compost evenly across the surface, and follow that with another 3 cubic feet of mulch. Finally, water the area thoroughly to, encourage microbial activation and really get things moving in the soil. For ongoing maintenance, just top dress with another inch of compost every 6 months and refresh the mulch as needed. Now, after a year, test the soil by pushing a metal rod or stake into the ground. Where it once met resistance after about 2 inches, you'll often find it now slides 6 to 8 inches deep. That's genuine structural change, definitely not just temporary fluffing. There's a reason the method earned its lazy nickname. It doesn't demand heavy tilling or constant adjustment. Instead, it rewards gardeners who let biology operate at its natural pace. What starts as a compact, lifeless surface gradually becomes resilient, moisture-balanced, and, teeming with life. This approach doesn't just fix clay. It creates a soil ecosystem that can support crops year after year with minimal intervention. So, if you've been fighting your clay soil season after season, put down the shovel. Layer, feed, water, and wait. The transformation is slow, but it's permanent, and it works from within. If you found this guide helpful and want more tested soil-building methods rooted in real science and field results, don't forget to subscribe to Hydrohaven. Share this with another gardener battling stubborn clay, and help them discover that sometimes the best cure for bad soil is simply letting the soil heal itself.